What's going on, traders? We're going to get straight into it. So, in my last video, we were talking about a pump and dump happening today. And we got the pump, we got the dump, but then we unexpectedly got a rally. All right, we got this crazy rally to the upside. And I thought it was pretty interesting just how much we've moved within such a short period of time. What do I mean by that? Well, when we're looking at the triple Qs, we dropped all the way down to about 450, 451, give or take, and we closed at 468.62. It's very interesting. We moved almost 20 points within a few hours to the upside on the triple Qs. And you guys know how I feel about us moving too fast within a short period of time. Usually, when we talk about stuff like this, a sell off ends up happening within the next few days or so. Now, whether it's a correction or maybe just a cool down phase, I can't say for sure. But it was very, very concerning just how much we moved within such a short period of time. And even the SPY, we could look at the SPY real quick, and we saw that we went all the way down. We pretty much bounced off this fair value gap down here at around 540. We dropped to 540, and now we are closed at 554.42, almost 15 points within a few hours. So that tells me one or two things. Well, mainly one thing. We're pricing in something. We're pricing in something huge. Now we can say it's because of the bond auctions. When has the bond auction ever made us move this much within a day? We can say it's Nvidia news, sure, but the market is forward looking. It looks towards the future. We buy hope, we sell guarantees. That's a bar. You got to hit the like button for that bar. That was a bar, okay? But we buy hope, we sell guarantees. That's how the market works. So we're forward looking. And so, what is the biggest catalyst that we're looking forward to that can cause such a jump? Rate cuts. We have rate cuts coming in September 18th, right? And so, I imagine that the market is really trying to price in this news as fast as possible. Now, it's still the middle of the week. Maybe we see a sell off towards the end of the week, and maybe we just are pricing in something else. But I can't imagine what news could possibly be bigger than rate cuts unless Nvidia ends up forming Optimus Prime in their backyard or something. I don't know. But regardless, it's very interesting just how much we moved. And I can't say for sure that I'm really comfortable with this move. So let's talk about where we are. So we're going to look at Nvidia real quick and then we're just going to go down the line. So let's look at Nvidia. So in my last video, I let you guys know that if Nvidia just so happens to hold above this white trend line, let's get into it real quick. Let's zoom out. And so if Nvidia just so happens to close above this white trend line, which it did yesterday, and it gets above 110, then we could be looking at that move towards 116, 117. We zoom in, we can see that we're pretty much mitigated our fair value gap here, and we filled the gap at around 117 for Nvidia. And we were talking about this last video that this is likely a move that's going to happen, especially considering our AI bot pretty much called this move spot on. So shout out to the AI bot. That thing is like insanely accurate. So if you want access to that, Discord link is in the description below. But regardless, when I said Nvidia gets above 110, I also said that it's most likely going to see that move that the bot was talking about towards 116, 117. So what happens from here? Well, one or two things can happen. Obviously, we go up or down, right? So if we break and hold above 117, then we're looking at a move towards 120. If we break and hold above 120, then we're looking at a move towards 123 for Nvidia. And so why am I talking about more upside here? Because we still have a fair value gap on the weekly time frame, believe it or not. And so we have a fair value gap here, and we're pretty much right here. And one or two things can happen from here. And I keep saying that, but we can reject from this 117 level or we can get rid and mitigate this fair value gap for this week. And that will be very interesting to see because at that point, we could be looking at a rejection from this area here. And I mean a huge rejection. And remember, I told you guys around Nvidia earnings that if Nvidia breaks below 117, then it's heading towards 110. and probably even lower than that. Now, I think the lowest target I said was about 107, and we got exactly that. So if we break and hold above 117, then I think it's obvious that we're going to start heading towards, or at least starting to mitigate this fair value gap on the weekly chart. And at that point, I do imagine that we will see some type of rejection. Now, how big of a rejection is up in the air, but I do imagine that if we do reject from here, then we're creating a lower high for the week. We'll have our high here, another lower high here, and if we reject here, we're looking at another lower high. Now, we don't necessarily have a lower low just yet, so something to keep in mind. But I imagine if we reject from here, our first target will be 117 once again, all over again, and then we're looking at a move back down to 110. And if we give up 110 once again, I do imagine Nvidia is going to start selling off. Now, I'm not going to keep talking about the head and shoulders pattern. You can argue whether it is one or not. It's really up to you. I don't necessarily care anymore to argue about it. I made a whole video explaining head and shoulders patterns. It is what it is, okay? Whether you believe it or not, it's up to you. By all means, trade what you think is going on with your charts, okay? But obviously, you're here for a reason. You're watching this video for a reason. So maybe you somewhat believe something I'm saying here. But regardless, I do think Nvidia could possibly see a rejection from here. Or if we do continue to head higher, then we're looking at a move to 120 and then 123. Now, it's important to note that since we're looking at the weekly time frame, we might as well get it out the way that we do have major fair value gaps to the downside, all the way down to about 50, 55 range. Okay. So we want to keep that in mind. And what do I tell you guys all the time? Fair value gaps are more likely to fill than regular gaps. And so far, you guys have been witnessing it for like the past few videos where we're seeing in somewhat real time that our fair value gaps are getting mitigated. And so this will be the last one to the upside towards 123. So what happens from here is going to be very, very critical. And if we mitigate this week or get rid of this week, I imagine next week is going to be very, very interesting. And we could be looking at a potential sell off. Now, what would change my sentiments? If we can just so happen get if we can just get above 130s on Nvidia, then that would change my sentiment. But we'll talk about that in another video. But for now, Nvidia looks pretty good right here. It's in a good spot. It could reject from here, but we can't really say for sure until maybe tomorrow, maybe Friday. Let's look at SMH. So in my last video, I said pretty much exactly what happened in regards to SMH and Nvidia. So we know SMH is a holder of Nvidia. Its number one holding in shares is Nvidia. And so I told you guys, let's go down to the daily time frame here. And I pretty much said that if Nvidia is going to pump, then most likely SMH is going to pump and start mitigating this fair value gap all the way to the 230s. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And we do have a little more upside to go in order to really mitigate this fair value gap all the way to at least 240. So I do imagine that if that is the case, then Nvidia is going to start heading towards that 120, 123 level. Now, we can reject from here. That is possible, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. And if we do reject from here, then that would create a lower high. So if we reject from here, break below this fair value gap, we'll be creating a lower high. We have our high here, lower high here, and then we break further down, and we either pretty much form some type of double bottom here at around the 217, 215 range, or we start creating a lower low and heading towards the $200 neckline in regards to this head and shoulders pattern on SMH. And so that's what I'm looking at for SMH. So we're in I guess my point here is that we're in very critical spots in regards to the overall market, at least the tech sector. We look at NQ, and we're pretty much seeing the same thing on the NQ, where we're mitigating a fair value gap right here at around 19,200. And I told you guys this is one of the bullish levels that I'm looking at if we do just so happen to pump today, that I think NQ is going to head towards 19,200. And so what's very interesting again is just how much we moved within one day. We went all the way down to 18,500 on NQ and then just pumped all the way up to 19,200. Me personally, I just don't think that's a normal move. I think the market is pricing in something major. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, it is possible that NQ rejects from here. But if we do just so happen to head higher, I do imagine that we are going to start heading towards the 19,500 range, which is right where this trend is. In case you guys think I'm making it up, we bounced here. We bounced here, we bounced here, we broke down, we broke back in, we broke down again, and it looks like we could potentially start heading back towards this trend and possibly retest it before we either reject from here or we head higher. Now, it is important to note that we do have a potential double bottom here forming, and the double bottom is not yet confirmed until the neckline is broken. So I don't want to run away with this, but there is somewhat of a double bottom. Okay, we have a higher low, we have a low here, higher low here. We don't have yet a higher high, but it is possible. But if we do reject from here, then we are going to form a lower high. And then at some point, we want to see a potential move back to the downside and form some type of lower low if we are looking to be bearish. Now, looking at the ES. So one thing I did say is that if the ES gets above, and this looks absolutely crazy, I meant to erase all this, so we'll just breeze past this. But if the ES gets above 55.50, then that's pretty bullish. Right now we are at a supply and demand zone here, the daily supply and demand zone. So we're not quite in the clear, but if we just so happen to break out of here, then I do imagine ES is going to head back towards the 5600 range. All right. Right now, we are looking at a possible double top here on the ES. It's not confirmed. No neckline is broken. The neckline is all the way down to like 5100. That's pretty much all I have for ES. I don't want you guys to look at this epilepsy uh, chart. I meant to erase all that, so I'm sorry about that. Looking at the SPY, I don't know where everything went on the SPY, but again, when we're talking about the SPY pretty much went ballistic from 540 all the way to 555. That's a lot in a one, not even one day. I wouldn't say one day. That's a lot for a few hours. That's a huge move for a few hours. And so, again, in order for me to be bullish on the SPY, and I mean really, really bullish and start talking about all time highs, I want to see us break above the supply and demand zone here at around, I want to say, because I erased everything on accident somehow. Right here, the supply and demand zone at around 565, we'll say 565, 563 range. If we break above here, we'll be back in that channel that I've been talking about, and I accidentally erased it, but you can watch the last video or two where we pretty much been trading within this channel for about a year or so. We broke below the channel, and now we are heading back towards it, or it looks like we're trying to head back towards it, and we just so happen to break above this supply and demand zone, then all-time highs is definitely on the table. Obviously, we'll be at all-time highs, but my targets for all-time highs will be 580 for the SPY, and the highest we could be looking at is about 600. Now, I don't think that's going to happen before rate cuts. I think that's absolutely insane if that does happen. If anything, I think that would be scary heading into October if we do just so happen to see 580. I wouldn't even say 580. If we see 600 prior to October, I think the month of October is going to be very, very scary. All right. So that's really what I have in regards to the SPY. Because I pretty much erased everything and I'm not going to draw everything out while we're doing this video. So looking at the triple Qs, yeah, 470. If we break above 470, then there's chances for us to head higher. We do have a fair value gap. We have a fair value gap and a regular gap all the way at 492. All right. So either we break through here, we break and retest, and then we start heading towards this fair value gap, therefore making a higher high. So we'll have a higher low, low, higher low, and then we form some type of higher high. We fill this gap, and then we break down from there. That is a possible scenario. Or we head up here at around 470 and we reject from here, thus confirming, well, thus help, I wouldn't say confirming, what's a good word? Thus pretty much confirming, I guess, help confirming that this is a possible head and shoulders pattern that's getting ready to be confirmed. And our neckline, I actually switched the colors here. Our neckline is all the way down here at around the 430s, 420 range. So that's what I would be looking at in regards to the triple Qs. So really pay attention. I can't say what's going to happen for sure tomorrow because we moved a lot today. And usually after we move a lot within, well, usually when we have a huge volatile day, the market tends to cool off the next day, and the next day is usually like a really boring day. And we moved a lot today. So I do imagine tomorrow, I don't have high expectations for tomorrow. We do have PCE data, but other than that, I just PCE data is just regurgitating everything we already know. So I don't expect anything crazy to happen. So maybe Friday we see some action, but tomorrow I'm not really counting on anything. Thursdays historically are sell-off type of days. The market historically does sell off on Thursdays. So something to look out for. We'll see. But other than that, that's all I have in regards to really the overall market. So sorry I couldn't give you guys much. There's really not much to talk about here. I mean, yes, we moved a lot, but I just gave you guys scenarios that we could be looking at where either we start heading higher to the upside and getting rid of the fair value gaps to the upside, or we reject and we start heading towards the fair value gaps that need to be mitigated to the downside. We're looking at the triple Qs here. We zoom out on a weekly time frame. As you guys can see, we need to get towards these fair value gaps all the way down to the 380s. I don't know if you guys remember when we were at 380. I do. It was a pretty crazy time, and from there we just absolutely went ballistic. So something to pay attention to. Head and shoulders pattern, shoulder here, head here, another shoulder here. If you disagree, that's fine. Don't watch the video if you're going to disagree every single time. But that's another thing. If you disagree every single video with my sentiments, even though I've been right for like the past 2 weeks on a drop happening, I mean, if you don't believe me, I mean, for the past 2 weeks, we've been dropping. Okay, and we're starting to slightly recover, but for me, this just seems like a retest until we start breaking very major levels. Okay, but other than that, I mean, we look at Nvidia, we see the same exact thing where since Nvidia earnings or prior to Nvidia earnings, I've been pretty much saying that I think semiconductors are going to drop and the overall tech sector is going to drop. And we've been doing that ever since. And now we're just bouncing back up to the upside. Could this be a retest? We'll have to see. But other than that, I mean, if you disagree with every single video, which is fine to disagree, but if you're doing it every single video, you might want to watch somebody who correlates with your sentiments. I think that's just healthy for you as a trader. But if you're watching someone who you disagree with all the time, then I don't think that's good for you as a trader. But do what you want. I do appreciate the support regardless. I mean, a comment is a comment, a view is a view. But other than that, I really want to look out for you guys as a trader because even if you're bullish on the market, you shouldn't be watching someone who's bearish. Okay. If your strategy is proven to be correct 80% of the time, your trading strategy, and someone is going against that, then you probably shouldn't watch that person. All right. Sure, you can get different views, but if you're disagreeing with that person like 99% of the time, then you probably shouldn't listen to them. You probably shouldn't be watching them. And you probably should find a YouTuber or Discord that correlates with you. And I'm fine with that. I don't get monetized for these videos. I do them for fun. I do them to help people. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But so far, we've been pretty spot on. I mean, my last video was literally saying pump and dump. And I talked about a pump and dump, and we got exactly that. We just didn't get the pump after the dump part right. All right. But other than that, that's all I have for this video. Discord link is in the description below if you want access to our trades. And that's all I have for this video. Until the next video, traders, have a good one.